Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be going over some chainsaw safety tips. A chainsaw is one of the most versatile tools you can own, but it cuts wood and probably it cuts flesh even better because flesh is softer. And so before you cut anything, you need to know how to use the tool safely. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Chainsaws are the perfect tool for cutting trees and large fallen branches, but figuring out where to start and how to go about the job safely is a challenge. In this video, I'll tell you what I've learned since I first started using chainsaws and what I already knew before I started, including techniques for removing branches and cutting up the trunk. Of course, safety is the most important consideration when using a chainsaw. In addition to the tips I'm going to give you in this video, be sure to read and follow the safety precautions listed in your chainsaw's owner's manual. Avoid cutting with the kickback zone of the chainsaw bar. This is the top half of the nose of the bar, and cutting with the kickback zone can cause the saw to kick back towards you and usually results in an injury. Keep control of the chainsaw while you're cutting by using an encircling grip around the handles. I don't have a chainsaw handy to show you guys, but yeah. Cutting with the chain on the bottom of the bar is the most common and natural feeling way to cut, but the saw pulls slightly and it's easy to control by maintaining a firm grip. Cutting from the underside of a branch or log requires you to cut with the top of the bar, and this is a little unnerving at first because the saw pushes toward you, but it's safe as long as you're well braced and you're wearing proper safety equipment and following all the safety precautions. And chances are at some point while you're using a chainsaw, you're gonna be in a situation where you have to cut with the top of the bar, so it is not completely avoidable. It is safe as long as you do it correctly. But there is one spot of the bar you should carefully avoid. This spot is called the kickback zone, and it's the top half of the bar's tip or nose. If the kickback zone comes into contact with something while the chain is moving, the saw will kick up and back toward you, and that's why modern saws are equipped with an inertia-activated chain brake, which will stop the chain if a kickback occurs. The most common chainsaw injuries to the thigh and the left arm can be virtually eliminated with just a few simple precautions. First, always wrap the thumb of your left hand around the front handle while you're cutting. Do not put it off to the side like this with your hands around the handle. This encircling grip keeps the saw under control in the event of a kickback. Second, when you move from place to place, even if it's only a few feet up the tree while you're bucking up the trunk, always remove your hand from the back handle, engage the chain brake, and carry the saw at your side with your left hand holding the front handle. Then, if you trip or stumble, there's no way the saw's engine can accelerate and start the chain spinning because a natural habit is for people to clench when they fall. So if you have your right hand on the handle and your chain brake's not on and you've got both hands on the chainsaw, you pull that trigger when you go down, your head could land on that bar and you could cut your head wide open. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just stating facts. Put on your safety gear. Buy safety gear and wear it. Chainsaw chaps will often stop a moving chain and save your thigh. A helmet with a face screen and ear protection is a convenient way to keep head, eye, and ear protection in one convenient and comfortable package. That way you don't have eyeglass or safety glasses to lose and a hard hat to lose and earplugs or earmuffs to lose. And wear steel-toed boots. And even with the face screen on the helmet, you're going to want a pair of safety glasses, sunglasses or bugs goggles, to prevent dust from getting in your eyes. You'll find this stuff at most chainsaw stores or logging stores, and the first step to chainsaw safety is wearing your safety gear. Now, I'm going to go through Amazon, and I'm going to look up sunglasses, safety glasses, bugs goggles, and other chainsaw safety equipment. Now, I'm going to make a nice list in the description in the bottom of this video for you guys to follow. It's going to be a list on Google Drive. You will not need a Google account to view it, but you'll be able to go there and click on the links. And I'm just going to find the highest rated featured item for each of these categories. Now that you're dressed, fill up your saw with mixed gas, which is part gas and part 2-cycle oil. Make sure to read your owner's manual for the proper mix. The most common ones are 32 to 1, 40 to 1, and 50 to 1, but I've heard of some other mixes, so don't expect it to be one of those. Nowadays, most saws run 50 to 1, but some don't. We have a Remington chainsaw out at the cottage, and that is not 50 to 1, it's 40 to 1. You can purchase premixed gas at almost any hardware store if you don't feel comfortable mixing your own gas. And always make sure, if you do mix your own gas, purchase ethanol-free gas at the gas station. Next, fill your oil tank, which is in the front of the saw, with bar and chain oil. You do not want to fill your gas tank with bar and chain oil. To start the saw, engage the chain brake, make sure the ignition switch is in the on position, and pull out the choke. With the saw sitting on the ground, put the toe of your right boot into the back handle loop and grasp the front handle with a stiff left arm. Pull the starter handle with your right arm to fire up the engine, and then push in the choke and pull the chain brake back toward the handle to release the chain brake for cutting. Get a feel for how your saw responds to the throttle. Cut only when you're in a comfortable, well-balanced position with your feet about shoulder width apart. You'll feel different forces when you're cutting. When cutting with the bottom of the bar, the saw will pull you into the work. When cutting with the top of the bar, undercutting, the saw will tend to push away from you. The second force is called a pushing chain, and when cutting with a pushing chain, brace the back handle of the saw or your arm against your thigh to gain more control of the saw and to reduce fatigue. Before you start the saw, check the chain tension. Recheck it after every hour or so of use and adjust it if necessary. New chains stretch, and they'll need to be checked after about 20 minutes of use. Loose chains can fly off the bar and cause serious injury. A loose chain can also damage the bar and prevent the chain leaks from fitting back into the bar grooves. To make adjustments, loosen the bar nuts that hold the bar. Then lift the bar while tightening the adjusting screw until the chain is snug around the bar. The tension is correct when you can't lift the chain drivers free of the bar groove, but you can still drag the chain freely around the bar with a gloved hand. And last but not least, retighten the bar nuts. Start cutting at the trunk, working toward the top. Once the tree is down, cut off branches starting at the lower end of the trunk and working toward the top. Whenever possible, rest the saw engine against the trunk and pivot the bar down through the branch. Start cutting downward on branches under pressure. Cut off branches that are under pressure by first cutting downward through 1/3 of the branch, and finish the cut by sawing upward about a 1/2 inch away from the first cut. Be prepared for the trunk to roll or drop when you cut a branch that's under pressure. Before you even fire up your saw, stand back and size up the situation. Think about how you'll cut each branch and what will happen when you do. Obviously, branches facing up will fall. Make sure the fall path is open. It's not so clear what will happen when you cut branches trapped under the fallen tree. They'll be under pressure, and in some cases removing them will cause the entire tree to drop. Even seasoned pros can't always predict how far the trunk will drop or whether the tree will roll. But you should always imagine the worst case scenario and be prepared for it. Take a few minutes to clear a path behind you and to the side for a quick retreat. And always work with a partner or tell someone where you're going to, so that if you become trapped or injured, you'll have someone to call for help, because if nobody knows where you are, it could be a while until people find you. Start by removing the branches closest to the lower end of the trunk and work toward the top of the tree. Whenever possible, stand on the uphill side of the tree. Work from the left side of the trunk as you face toward the top of the tree. This allows the safest and most efficient use of the chainsaw on the trunk, and slice off the branches with a pivoting motion. Start cutting downward in the trunk. Cut trunks that are supported at both ends by making a downward cut 1/3 of the way through the trunk. Cut upward to complete the cut from the underneath the trunk. Be prepared for one or both sides to drop. Take the pressure off the saw during the cut. Stop the engine if the bar gets bound up or stuck. And use a stout branch or 4x4 to lift the trunk and open the cut enough to remove the saw. Unless, of course, you have a tractor, then you can use that. Cut the logs into 16-inch pieces to use for firewood, unless you're going to use them for lumber. Cut 3/4 of the way through the log, then roll it over and complete the cuts. This way you won't cut into the dirt and dull up your chain. As you cut branches out from under the trunk, it'll settle to the ground. Finally, the trunk will either rest entirely on the ground or hang suspended. If it's suspended, cut the trunk loose from the stump and carefully roll it to the ground. If you try to cut straight down through a trunk that's supported on both ends, the weight of the trunk will pinch the bar and stop the saw. Instead, use the technique I just explained in the beginning of this section to avoid binding. The saw can also become pinched if you cut too far through a branch that supports the trunk. If this happens, stop the engine and find something to lift the trunk and free the saw. After the trunk is free of branches and resting safely on the ground, cut it into manageable pieces for the equipment you have. If the spot you're cutting is resting fully on the ground, don't cut all the way through it, as your chain will dull if you cut into the dirt. Keep the bar parallel to the ground as you near the end of the cut, and finish with the bottom of the saw engine resting flat on the ground. This will prevent the chain from accidentally hitting the dirt. With this method, you don't have to worry about your chain hitting the ground. Most chainsaw injuries happen to the thigh when the operator is carrying a running saw. That's why chainsaw pants or chaps are important. When transporting the saw less than 10 feet, carry it by the front handle only. That way, if you trip, you won't accidentally accelerate the saw and cut your thigh. When moving more than 10 feet, engage the chain brake. Instruct everyone never to blindly approach the operator of a chainsaw. The noise of the chainsaw and the concentration required may make the operator oblivious to someone coming up from behind to announce lunch or dinner. Never cut alone. If an incident occurs, you'll need someone there to administer first aid and to summon medical assistance. If you're cutting alone, carry a tourniquet with you and know how to use it. At some point in the Firewood Academy series, well, probably not in the Firewood Academy series, eventually I will show you guys how to use a tourniquet. A real tourniquet. Not a belt or something. Keep your cell phone with you for emergencies. Understand the bar's kickback zone and avoid getting into kickback situations. Never cut above shoulder height. Unless, of course, you're using a pole saw. Work on the uphill side of trees so that things will roll away from you instead of over you. Use your chain brake. Whenever your saw is running and you aren't cutting, it should be engaged. Start all cuts with a full throttle before touching the wood. Never run a chainsaw while under the influence of drugs or alcohol. When fatigued, you need to rest, so rest. Protect your back. When trying to move logs, use a lever or a cant hook to help. Avoid touching the ground with the chain, because even a brief encounter with the dirt will severely dull the teeth. And keep the chain sharp. A dull chain is unsafe, believe it or not. Hard on the bar and the chain, and it overworks both you and the saw. I hope you all enjoyed this video and learned something new. Like I said before, I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just stating the facts. I will see you all again on Wednesday. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, and check us out on Facebook at Outdoors with A&T. We've also got a Patreon page with 3 different membership options, so don't forget to go check that out as well. So, I'll see you all soon. Until next time, bye for now.